physicians, we are constantly inundated with information, and remembering this information can be overwhelming. Without a system for storage and recall, this important information can get lost or forgotten. That's where a tool like Obsidian and a well-organized vault can really be a game changer. By linking notes and creating a network of ideas, you can move beyond scattered files and messy folders to a well-organized personal knowledge management system. By the end of this video, you'll see how I organize my Obsidian vault so that I can capture, organize, store, and be able to recall important information when I need it. So why do we take notes? One reason may be just so that we can help pay attention when we're listening. But really, at the heart of it, the reason why we take notes is because there's information that we want to retain, maybe information we want to recall or incorporate into our essentially network of ideas that we have in our mind so that we can then be more effective in some other capacity. We can use that information. We take notes, we learn things, we have data so that it can be used for something else. The challenge with notes is that while they're easy to take, they end up being just a bunch of digital clutter. They're scattered all over the place with no form of organization. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, talks about this idea of goals and achieving our goals. And he says, we do not rise to the level of our goals, but we fall to the level of our systems. And when we don't have a system for knowledge management, when we don't have a system to capture, organize, be able to retain, and then use our notes, they just become this useless digital clutter. So over the years, I've tried multiple different applications and methods to try to capture, store, and record information that I want to recall. But the application I've found to be the most helpful is Obsidian. Largely because it is simple, it's lightweight, it's flexible, but it's very powerful through this idea of linking notes, where I can create an idea, link it to a whole bunch of other notes, so that I can then recall that information down the road. Traditionally, when you take digital notes, there's a couple different ways of storing the information so that you can recall it. It's either through a good title, where you can come back to that file name, or through a cascading system of folders where you can organize notes by topic. The problem is, what happens when you have a note that fits multiple topics or would benefit from being in multiple folders? You copy and paste it, you create a whole bunch of shortcuts, and a lot of that is just very cumbersome. This is where Obsidian really provides a huge benefit, because it allows you to link notes together without having to create this massive folder structure. And so as I've approached my Obsidian vault, what I've tried to do is create a system that does not rely heavily on folders. It's very lightweight on the folder front, putting most of my notes in just broad categories of folders so that I can easily just get a note into my system, process it, and then put it in a folder so it's out of my visual line of sight, but easily accessible later on down the road. So let's dive on into my vault. I want to show you a little bit how I organize my Obsidian vault, because I found this to be particularly helpful. So let's get into our Obsidian vault here. So as we open Obsidian, it's going to open up to the home screen that I've created. If you don't have a home screen, it will just open up. And if you look on the left-hand column here, I have a series of folders. Now, I don't personally like to have a ton of folder organization, just because I want to keep things simple. I want to keep things lightweight. I don't want to have to think where I'm going to put this, so that I can just get notes out of the sidebar here, so it doesn't clutter things up. I want things to be very simple and organized here. So let's just go through some of these file folders that I've got here so that we can see how I've organized things, and this may give you some inspiration for how you want to set up your vault. So first off, you're going to notice a system of numbers. I want to keep things in a certain order, so I put a series of numbers in front of it so that I can have that folder be in non-alphabetical orders. So the first folder here is organizational notes. I have a number of just general housekeeping notes, things that don't necessarily pertain to the knowledge management system, but kind of help the knowledge management system work. So there's different Canva boards you can utilize here. There's different banners that I've used in notes. Maybe some front-end elements that I have here for my Obsidian vault, and then I've created like an Obsidian reference. If I need to remember Markdown, I can have some reference information in here that I can come back to for how I can write or script things in my notes. So again, none of this is really knowledge management. It's more just organizational, how I can make my vault run a little bit better. So I needed a folder just to kind of dump some of those notes in, to separate them away from the notes that actually have some knowledge in them, or some information in them that I want to record. Which brings us to our main folder. So this is just the notes folder, right? In this folder is pretty much every note that I have. If the note doesn't fall into some other organizational category, right, I dump it all into notes. And so as you go through this, and you'll see this, I generally tend to organize my vault based on broad categories of note rather than the topic of what that note might cover, right? Rather than the thing that's in that note. Because I figure the thing that's probably least likely to be redundant across my files is the category of that note, whether it be a meeting note or a book note or just a random thought or a quote or a video outline that I'm going to do here, things like that. It's going to be organized kind of that way. So in this folder, I pretty much dump all the notes that I take. And the benefit of doing it like this is now I don't have to think about where that note goes when I take that note. I know where it's going to end up. It's going to end up in my notes folder. So I just have to create the note, find some way of linking that notes to other things so that I can recall it when I need it. And then once that's done, it goes right on into the notes folder. So as we move down the stack, the next folder is this folder for journal notes. Now Obsidian has a feature called periodic notes where you can basically take notes that are referenced to a certain day, a week, or a month, daily notes, weekly notes, monthly notes. And so to designate those as something other than just a normal note, right, a normal content note, I created this folder here to keep organized my daily notes and keep organized my weekly notes. And so you can see here different weeks, different days. It's not a feature that I use all the time, but it's something that if I have something particular to that day, I can create that daily note and it's going to dump right on in here. So as we move down, number 3 here is meeting notes. And this is basically the folder where I just put notes that I take at meetings. If I'm at a meeting and taking notes on kind of what's going on or have the minutes of that meeting, I'm going to dump it into this folder. And that means it may be linked to other things in the journal or in this archive, but it allows me to then have a specific place to put those notes that are designated to be something separate from daily notes, monthly notes, journaling notes, or other regular notes. So as we move down to number 4, we get to this idea of reference notes. And this is really a folder that is supposed to be for other people's ideas. Now, a lot of what's in the notes folder is my ideas, things that I've thought about, that I've captured, or quotes or something that I've pulled out from somewhere else. But if I'm going to take a note on a book, or if I'm going to take a note on a podcast or something like that, that needs to go into its own folder here called reference notes. And so as we unfold this one, we can see that there's a lot of different options for articles or for books, or maybe I'm at a conference or I'm reading a journal article about something for work. I keep a lot of this information in reference notes. I also have a folder for people. So if I run across an author, I maybe want to have a note on that author, maybe C.S. Lewis, and then I can link in there all the different times I've quoted C.S. Lewis, all the different books I read about C.S. Lewis, things like that, or information that I want to learn about that person. And so a lot of things that don't fit into just this one idea, this atomic idea, that's reference to a certain other work, whether it be a book or a journal article or things like that, is going to go into this reference notes. And eventually we can get into more about how this works. But one of the cool things is I can pull data from my article management system into this journal articles and have just a summary of a lot of different journal articles for different topics in medicine as a note here in Obsidian. So this is a really helpful folder for different information that's based on a reference material. So as we get to number 5, we have the folder output. And this is basically for things that I've created. This is the output that I've done, whether it be a blog post or a video or a lecture that I give. All that's going to be collected here so that I can have that accessible, organized, but also separate from maybe some more raw ideas up in the notes folder. And so you can see I have different folders here for different forms of output that I have. And then I've created some of these summary sheets where I can go look at this by year and things to that effect. So this is going to be where I keep the things that I do, the output that I create. So the next folder is templates. So one of the things that Obsidian allows you to do is to create templates and to use templates in your notes. So you can insert a certain block of text or a certain organizational structure to your notes at the front end using some hotkeys. And so one of the things that Obsidian requires is a place to store those templates. You need to know where you're going to get those templates from. And so I've created my own folder here for templates where I can put all the templates that I've created for Obsidian into this folder. And so when I then activate that template, it can search through all the notes that are inside this folder. So as we get to the bottom here, I've created this inbox folder, which is essentially a staging folder for things that need to go into the notes. So what I'd like to do is try to link these notes to something else. I want to have them searchable, findable before I get them buried into this massive notes folder. And so if there's something that hasn't yet been developed or hasn't yet been linked or been processed in such a way that I would feel comfortable being able to find it, I'll oftentimes throw it in the inbox folder to get it before I get it into the big notes folder, largely so that when I'm doing something like this, I can keep this sidebar pretty clean. And then if I have a place where I can go to this unprocessed notes, it'd be in the inbox. So that's how I organize my Obsidian vault. I'm sure there's other ways of doing it. There may be better ways of doing it, but this is what seems to be working for me. What I like to do is to keep it very lightweight, keep it out of my way so that I can do more work in the main portion of Obsidian and not be constantly worrying about where am I going to store this, what I'm going to do. I want those decisions to be made before I even create the note so that I can focus on creating the notes. So this is how I organize my Obsidian vault. If you do something different, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. If you found this video particularly helpful, I'd appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. If you want some more information about how to use Obsidian, check out the video here. Thanks guys, have a good day, bye.